Good evening, everyone. Tonight I'll be covering the complete Mysterious and Abandoned Places Iceberg. Icebergs, for those that don't know, collect information about a certain topic on a chart, divided into tiers that go from higher to lower on that chart. The entries become more obscure as we go further down this iceberg. This isn't a simple compilation of my original two-part series. I re-recorded and re-edited everything to my current channel standards, and corrected some egregious mistakes from the original script. Some facts about these sites may have changed since the original video, which came out in the summer of 2022. I also worked to correct the mispronounced words. I'll start at the second tier so that we can more quickly reach the stranger entries of the iceberg, which hopefully won't be heartbreaking to you. You can find a link to the original iceberg chart in the description of this video. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you enjoy it, definitely leave a like. Let's start now. US Route 50 is a desolate stretch of highway that runs across the lower 48 in the United States. It starts in West Sacramento, California, and Ocean City, Maryland, on the west and east coasts, respectively. It earned the moniker Loneliest Road in America in a magazine article in 1984, a nickname which stuck. The highway crosses a handful of towns and passes through no major cities. The loneliest stretch of the highway goes through Nevada, covering desolate stretches of desert for a majority of the state. It maintains the title of Loneliest Road in America to this day. UVB 76. UVB 76 is a radio signal continuously broadcasted from a station that's located a few miles northwest of the Russian Federation's capital of Moscow. The station sends out a buzzing noise all day, every day, at least at the time of writing in 2022. It's received significant coverage from the media, with outlets like BBC and CNN writing stories about it. Explanations for the signal have been varied, with some thinking it's a dead hand switch, which means that the station will do something like launch a missile strike if the signal ever stops. Others have said that it's an espionage tool used by the Russian state. The station has been sending a variety of different sounds, like clicks and chirps, since the start of the Russo-Ukraine conflict. Another theory states that it might be a way for Russian spies to keep in contact with their handlers. Bohemian Grove. This is a retreat located in a redwood forest in Sonoma County, California. It's owned by the Bohemian Club, an all-male club founded in 1872 by a group of artists, doctors, lawyers, and other movers and shakers within the San Francisco community of the time. Politicians and wealthy businessmen frequented the place later on in the club's history. Its members have included men like Richard Nixon, Reagan, Walter Cronkite, and Clint Eastwood. Schwarzenegger apparently spoke there in 2010 while he was an honorary guest, so that's another name on the list. The club is known for having highly secretive rituals, resembling other fraternal orders like the Freemasons. One of the known rituals is called the Cremation of Care. This was instituted in 1881. Members of the club meet in front of a large stone owl near the campground of the site, and set a bonfire at the base of the statue. Not much else is known about what takes place during the retreat, besides lectures, presentations, and networking. Snake Island. I apologize to anyone in the audience with severe ophidiophobia. You might want to skip forward around 30 seconds or so. Snake Island is located off the coast of Brazil. Sailors were warned for centuries to avoid the island, as it was well known to house a variety of venomous snakes. It contains a variety of endangered snake species and is completely closed off to the public. It is also on the top 10 list of most dangerous places in the world. There are many varieties that can easily dispatch people who wander onto the small island. I'm not sure exactly how all these snakes got here, but it might be a brief segment in a future creepy Native American sites video. The Crooked Forest. This is a copse of 400 trees near the town of Gryfeno, Poland. Each of the trees takes a 90-degree angle near their base, giving their trunks a distinctive J shape. The residents of the town planted the trees in the 1930s. The town was destroyed by German forces in the opening stages of World War II. Residents fled to other places, and the knowledge of what occurred in the forest was lost. Gary Coleman, a professor of plant science at the University of Maryland, spoke about the forest in a 2022 Washington Post interview. His theory was that the trees got their slanted shape from being placed on their sides during their early life. Young trees will sometimes grow horizontally if they are knocked sideways during a storm or other event. It's unclear as to if the Crooked Forest was a complete accident due to the trees being neglected and then pushed over by a strong storm, or if the people who planted the forest wanted to achieve this effect. I've also heard that the trees were forced down by the inhabitants as the distinctive shape would be useful in ship construction in the region, or, in one story, used for chairs. Make of that what you will. Door to Hell. The Darvaza crater, also called the Door to Hell, is a sinkhole located in northern Turkmenistan. This large sinkhole of burning natural gas has been on fire continuously for over 40 years, as of the 2022 video. It was formed in 1971 when a sinkhole opened up beneath a Soviet drilling rig. The Russian government attempted to alleviate the issue by igniting the natural gas pocket. The site is currently part of the Karakum Desert Nature Reserve. An observation station near the crater's edge is open to the public. Transnistria. Transnistria is a separatist republic located between Moldova and Ukraine's southwestern border. It's not recognized by any state, but has its own national bank, currency, anthem, and flag. The nation has been historically controlled by, at different times, the Ottoman Empire, USSR, and Ukraine. It has been a close ally to the Russian Federation and has served as an enclave for separatists who want to further help the Russian cause. Svalbard Global Seed Vault. This entry is a massive cold storage facility on an island north of the Norwegian and Barents Seas. The vault holds over 1.4 million different types of seeds from all over the world and has room to store 4.5 million more. The vault cost some $8.8 million to construct and was funded entirely by the Norwegian government. You can deposit seeds without charge as well. The organization running it aims to have duplicates of every known seed, allowing future generations the ability to preserve and use them in case of a worldwide catastrophe or great reset. Gobekli Tepe. Gobekli Tepe is an ancient temple in northern Turkey. The site is believed to be the oldest temple in the world, constructed around 11,000 BC, over 6,000 years before Stonehenge. Archaeologists in the past dismissed it as nothing more than a medieval graveyard for crusaders. In 1994, a German archaeologist named Klaus Schmidt looking for artifacts in the region, looked into the site. Initial excavation began, and the discoveries the team made were carbon dated. The temple was found to be much older than previously uncovered sites throughout the Middle East. By 2022, only 5% of the entire structure of the hill beneath the temple had been excavated. Scans have revealed that there are multiple buildings between layers of rubble and dirt, meaning that there might be even older structures beneath the temple. Aokigahara Forest. This forest is located on the northwestern slope of Japan's Mount Fuji. It's also called the Sea of Trees. Many people pass away here voluntarily. It's considered one of the most haunted and spiritually charged places on Earth as a result. Urban legends state that those who stay in the forest past nightfall have an increased chance to be misled or hurt by the spirits of those who passed away within the forest. Very Large Array. This is a telescope and radio facility located in New Mexico. It's open to the public, and the site contains a massive group of telescopes and radar stations. The facility is tasked with looking for radio transmissions from space. It was also a major plot point in the 1997 film Contact, which starred Jodie Foster. Albanian Bunkers. These bunkers were the construction project of the People's Socialist Republic of Albania, starting in 1968. The dictator of the country, Enver Hoxha, was paranoid that the USSR or another neighboring country would try to invade. Constructing concrete bunkers became a priority for the military, and over 175,000 bunkers were constructed throughout Albanian towns and the countryside over a period of 20 years. The bunkers were used in the Albanian Civil War and the Kosovo conflict. Today, many of these structures are now hotels, homes, graves, and museums. Others continue to peacefully decay. North Sentinel Island. This small island lies in the Bay of Bengal. Tourists are prohibited from visiting the area or from going within a 3-mile radius of its coast. The island is the home of an indigenous group who have Stone Age level technology. They are called the Sentinelese. They are known to dispatch any outsiders who try to make their way to the island, as they see them as a threat to their society. In 2006, a pair of fishermen who went to the island to look for a place to fish were brutally taken out by the tribespeople. An Indian Coast Guard helicopter attempted to recover the fishermen, but a hail of spears and arrows prevented them from touching down. The Indian government, as a result, made it a point to prohibit any travel on or near the island. Vatican Secret Archives. The Vatican Apostolic Archive, also called the Secret Archives, resides in a fortress in Vatican City. The library has, it's estimated, almost 53 miles of shelving and 35,000 cataloged items. Interesting artifacts include the minutes for the trial of the Templar Order, which occurred in 1307, and the document of excommunication for Martin Luther. The archives were opened to the public a few years back, and tours of a small section of the library are now available. Salar De Ayuni. This is a salt flat near the Andes mountain range in Bolivia. It is the largest salt flat in the world, extending for 4,050 square miles. It was once the seabed of a massive lake that extended to cover much of southwest Bolivia during its life, but dried up over 25,000 years ago. A primary attraction is the Uyuni train graveyard, which houses the wrecks of dozens of old train engines that were used to haul tin from mines in the Andes. HARP Base. The HARP project was a U.S. military-backed project based in Alaska. Its main goal was to collect information from the ionosphere, a layer of the Earth's atmosphere that serves a role in transmitting radio signals. This research, which started in 1961, was intended to help prevent solar flares that could disable or harm valuable technology. Conspiracies arose, claiming the U.S. was attempting to build a weather-controlling device, which they had tried before. The military shut down the program in 2014 and transferred control and administration of the site to the University of Fairbanks. Christ of the Abyss. Christ of the Abyss is a submerged statue in the waters near San Frutoso, Italy. The statue was cast by the artist Guido Galletti in 1954. The idea to lower the statue into the depths near this town came from a friend of Galletti's, who was a diver. The statue serves as a memorial to all who have died at sea, and those who continue to explore its depths. Cat Island, Japan. Aoshima is a tiny island that is known for having large amounts of feline inhabitants, with cats outnumbering the human residents 6-1. Tourists will be greeted by clouders of cats upon arriving on Aoshima's shores. Hagar Quim. This is a series of beautiful ancient temples that dot the island of Malta. Ancient Maltese civilizations built many of these structures. They are UNESCO World Heritage Sites. Island of the Dolls. This place is located on a lake near Mexico City. The island was the project of Don Julian, who sequestered himself on the island in the 1950s and then spent decades collecting dolls. He placed them on trees throughout the island and did it, supposedly, to appease the spirits who dwelled on the island with him. He passed away and was found floating in the Xochimilco Canal. Statue of Unity. The Statue of Unity is currently the largest statue in the world. It stands 597 feet tall. It's in Gujarat, India. The statue depicts the statesman Patel, who was a follower of Gandhi. Patel played a critical role in the reunification of India, helping 500 different princedoms unify into India as it exists today. Agartha. Agartha is a fictional kingdom that's said to be near the Earth's core. People who support the Hollow Earth theory tend to agree that a place like Agartha could exist somewhere below the surface of the Earth. Pine Gap, Australian base. Pine Gap is an intelligence-gathering facility in the Northwest Territory in Australia. The site provides critical information for the U.S. military. Most of the U.S. agencies that monitor phones and computers in support of their operations are based out of Pine Gap. It also enables the U.S. to perform anti-ballistic missile response and helps coordinate drone strikes. Centralia. Centralia is a ghost town in Pennsylvania. It served as an inspiration for the setting of the Silent Hill movies. In 1962, town authorities decided to burn the local landfill to destroy the waste. The fire spread to an old strip mine that was underneath the landfill. The fire lit the coal within the mine, and the vein that ran beneath the town began to burn. The residents continued to go through their daily routines, despite the worsening air quality. In 1979, a massive sinkhole opened up and swallowed a young boy coming back from school. He, fortunately, was unharmed. The sinkholes became a reoccurring threat, and the noxious fumes that contaminated the air drove others to leave the area throughout the 1980s. The Pennsylvania Commonwealth condemned the town's buildings in 1992, and the residents either left or were forcibly evicted. 8 people decided to remain in Centralia despite the protests of the state authorities, and their number slowly dwindled over the coming years. Centralia became a true ghost town in 2020 and continues to remain uninhabited. You can visit the town today, but be warned that the fumes of the coal vein continue to filter into Centralia's air. I'd love to go check out this area at some point. The graffiti highway was covered with soil back in April 2020, but there's still some cool attractions in this part of the state. Baltic Sea Anomaly. The Baltic Sea Anomaly is a sonar aberration. It was first discovered by a company mapping the ocean floor in 2011. Divers went to the area of the strange sonar reading to take photos of this object. The readings of the site were circulated throughout the internet, and people began to speculate that the photos were of a sunken city or a crashed alien spaceship. Scientists examined samples of the object. Testing was finished, and the samples revealed that the strange shape on the seafloor was an ancient deposit formed by the shifting of Ice Age glaciers. The members of the original team who found it maintained that it was something far more sinister. Rockall isn't the first island on our list. This uninhabited place lies between Iceland and Ireland. It's the smallest piece of territory owned by the UK, measuring 8,442 square feet. Adam's Bridge. Adam's Bridge is a series of shoals and reefs spanning the distance between India and Sri Lanka. It's a beautiful location that was once a causeway that connected the two countries. It holds significance for a variety of religions in the area. The Muslim tradition says that Sri Lanka was once the Garden of Eden, and that Adam and his wife took the causeway when he left in disgrace from the garden. The Hindu tales say that the bridge was built by an army of monkeys working for the god Rama. Bermeja. This entry was a tiny island recorded on maps from the 17th to the early 20th centuries. Its location was given on these maps as 22 degrees 33 degrees north, 91 degrees 22 degrees east in the Gulf of Mexico. The island began to disappear from Victorian-era maps of Mexico, and in 1921, the island was put on a map for the last time. That map was called the Geographic Atlas of the Mexican Republic. Some experts believe the island sank sometime in the last couple of centuries, as sea levels rose. Georgia Guidestones. The Georgia Guidestones were unveiled in 1980. A man named R.C. Christian entered the town of Elberton, Georgia, in the summer of 1979. He talked to the city council about his plan to build an American Stonehenge. The town approved the project, and Christian began work. Messages in Arabic, Greek, Sanskrit, and a variety of other languages were sandblasted into the granite structure. The text outlined Christian's plan for a new form of government. The rules included keeping the population of the world under 500,000 people, and monitoring relationships so that only the strongest were born. This was done with the idea that it would balance man out with nature. Some people really didn't like the ideas put here, and a bomb went off at the site in July 2022, taking most of it out. The Veryovkina Cave. The Veryovkina Cave is the deepest cave on Earth, with a maximum depth of 7,257 feet. A team reached the bottom of the cave over the course of a week in 2018, but they barely escaped with their lives when a flash flood threatened their exploration. Rollercoaster Bridge. This is located in western Japan. Its name is the Eshima Ohashi Bridge, and it connects the cities of Matsue and Saka and Minato. The bridge gets its name from the steep incline and twists and turns that lead to its top. The design was made to allow ships to pass under it without the bridge having to be raised. De Rakotzbruke. This entry refers to a bridge in Saxony, Germany. The bridge is set in a great location, and the beautiful scenery makes it seem like it's out of a fairy tale. It's nicknamed the Devil's Bridge, as the locals used to say that the only way something so beautiful and strange was constructed was with the devil's help. A neat thing about the bridge is that the rock formations on the left of the bridge are not natural rock spires, instead being man-made. Mapimi Silent Zone. The Mapimi Silent Zone is a patch of desert near the outskirts of Durango, Mexico. Urban myths say that radio communications won't work in this area, and compasses and phones will malfunction. An American missile malfunctioned and fell into the center of this area in the 1970s. Fortunately, it wasn't carrying a payload, but this event might have been a contributing factor to the legend of the Silent Zone. By the way, I plan to make a series like the current American Urban Legends series that will try to cover one obscure urban legend from each Mexican province, so definitely keep an eye out for that in the future. Kolmanskop. Kolmanskop is a ghost town in Namibia. It was a former diamond mining town and, at one point in 1912, had the highest wealth per capita of any city in the world. Its workers mined well over 12% of the world's diamonds that year. 5 million carats were mined over half a decade. Kolmanskop had everything from a opera house to a ice packing plant at its peak. Most of the town's profits were gone by 1954, and the mines had long run dry. The town was abandoned and left to the elements. It remains a popular tourist attraction to this day. Denver Airport. This is one of the places that I've actually been through a few times, along with the Bohemian Grove. It spawned a variety of popular conspiracies, and the airport has leaned hard into them. The website claims that they aren't the headquarters for the New World Order, but that sounds like something a place harboring those facilities would say. Jokes aside, there's some interesting design choices in the airport, outside of the Blue Horse. There's a time capsule within the airport that has Freemason iconography all over it. The murals, which were sadly covered when I was there last fall, are known to be very strange. It was not the artist's intent, but the murals are uncanny and seem to depict some end-of-the-world scenario. The runway layout, according to some, also looks a little like a certain fanatical organization's logo. I've got to hand it to the people running the airport. They've actively used all of the conspiracy theories to make the airport a place well worth checking out, and provided themselves a way to sell merch. There's also a talking gargoyle near the West baggage claim on level 5. There was another, but it's in storage at the time of recording. The one that you can see, I believe, is around door 23 or so. Room 39. Room 39 isn't so much a place as it is an organization.
Asgard is not a place. It's a people.
Room 39 is a slush fund that helps the infamous North Korean dictator live in luxury. The organization is reputedly based out of the Workers' Building in Pyongyang City, but no one knows its true location for sure. It controls a majority of legitimate North Korean exporters and inland businesses, and uses them as a front to conduct activities varying from selling military equipment on the black market to exporting drugs abroad and conducting illicit trafficking. These activities allow North Korean officials to live in wealth at the expense of the people's health. Sandy Island. Sandy Island has a similar story to the island of Bermeja from earlier in the Iceberg. Sandy Island was a ghost island, recorded as being between New Caledonia and Australia up until the 19th century. It disappeared from the record after that point, and no island has been found at its given coordinates. Hashima Island. This entry is an abandoned mining facility near Nagasaki. It was also called Battleship Island. The site was a massive coal mining facility that was open from 1870 to 1974. It was used as a forced labor colony during World War II, and captured Korean and Chinese civilians made machines and engines there throughout the war. It escaped the destruction caused by the bomb being dropped in Nagasaki, and was abandoned decades after the war. Japan requested that the site be made a UNESCO World Heritage Site in 2009. This motion was opposed by both of the Korean governments, but the bill passed after Japan promised to build a memorial museum for the prisoners who worked on the island. The island can be accessed in present day, provided you first get a permit. Tunguska Event. The Tunguska Event occurred in 1908, when an asteroid entered the Earth's atmosphere and burned up 40 miles high in the sky. This caused a massive fireball that scorched around 800 miles of Siberian wilderness. People as far as 40 miles away from the impact felt the immense heat, which stripped the bark from the trees. Royal Air Force, Menwith Hill. This site is similar to the Pine Gap entry. There's not a lot to say about the Menwith Hill base. It's an intelligence center for NATO and the NSA. Viaduct Petrobras. This abandoned highway is deep within the Brazilian jungle. It was part of a national highway project that started in the 1970s. The initiative was part of a push to modernize Brazil's public roads. This section of the highway was left to rot after the highway department ran out of funds. 33 Thomas Street. This one is particularly interesting. 33 Thomas Street is a 550-foot tall skyscraper in New York City. It was constructed in 1974 and has no windows on its structure, just a pair of air recirculation systems near the top of the building. It was made to withstand nuclear blasts, so windows were taken out of its design. It contains cold storage for up to 1,500 tons of food. It has a variety of survival equipment and systems that can filter out radiation. It serves as a station for AT&T in the present day. If you make an international call on a AT&T network, it will most likely be going through the skyscraper on Thomas Street. It's also claimed that the place is a spy hub for the NSA, which tracks, considering how many calls go through the building. Lake Hillier. This is a pink lake. Mystery Spot, California. Mystery Spot is a tourist attraction outside of Santa Cruz. The site has a house that has a oddly tilted interior. This results in visitors experiencing a disorienting effect. Gravity Hill. These phenomena can be found all over the U.S. I discovered several gravity hills in many different U.S. states while researching for the Urban Legend series. along with Bigfoots and water babies. Gravity hills are places where descending slopes appear to be heading uphill due to the shape of the surrounding landscape. Water appears to flow uphill during rainstorms, and cars out of gear look like they are rolling up instead of down. The real sword in the stone. This refers to a sword buried in bedrock inside of an abbey near Siena, Tuscany. The sword was placed there by a man called Saint Guidati. He was a wealthy knight born in 1146 AD in Siena. He became a hermit in 1180 and received a vision from the archangel Michael. Michael told him to give away his earthly possessions. Guidati resisted, saying that to do so would be as difficult as splitting a stone. He thrust his sword into a nearby rock to prove his point. The sword went through the stone as if the stone was made out of water. Guidati left the sword and the stone on the hilltop as a symbol of the cross. He was canonized as a saint, and the sword was placed in a nearby abbey. Historians believe the sword to be a hoax for a long time. The theory was that it was placed in the rock long after Guidati's death. Carbon dating revealed the sword was from the lifetime of the saint. Dead Bly. Dead Bly is a patch of salt desert in Namibia. The most interesting part of this park is the dead trees scattered throughout. Many of the trees are over 1,000 years old, and are a window into a time when the surrounding desert was once ancient grasslands. The desert plants in the park are still alive, with the larger specimens estimated to be around 1,500 years old. Google Earth in Snow Saddle. This area of the Himalayas was obstructed and blurred out on satellite images. Kongtiga Peak is located deep within Tibet and was blurred out on maps up until the end of 2021. Club 33. Club 33 is a VIP series of clubs located in Disneylands throughout the US. The club gets its name from the original address of the first VIP club, on 33 Royal Street in New Orleans. The only way to get in is by emailing Disney at the club's designated address. Memberships are said to cost around $30,000 initially, and then $15,000 annually after the first year. Benefits of the club include passes that are good for 365 days of the year, 51 day park hopper tickets, 5 VIP guided tours, and a chance to meet celebrities involved with Disney's franchises, like Tom Hanks and Rebel Wilson. ADX Florence Prison. This place is in Florence, Colorado, and is called the Alcatraz of the Rockies. The site is a supermax prison featuring the highest level of security of any American prison, and has a variety of harsh restrictions to prevent inmates from escaping. Famous prisoners of ADX include the Unabomber, Eric Rudolph, the Atlanta Olympics bomber, and a variety of other infamous terrorists and criminals. The entire site is composed of solitary confinement cells, and houses the worst of the worst. No prisoners have escaped the facility since its founding in 1994. Land underneath Antarctica. It's not common knowledge, but underneath its thousands of tons of snow and ice, Antarctica has some of the deepest caves and pieces of land of any place on Earth. In 2019, scientists learned more about what the continent beneath the ice looks like. Satellite imaging brought new discoveries and a greater understanding of Antarctica's landscape. The continent buried beneath the ice has hundreds of lakes and rivers. These contain flowing water, as the insulation from the snow above keeps the water from freezing. There's a canyon deeper than the Grand Canyon that extends for over 100 miles underneath East Antarctica. Recent discoveries also revealed that bacterial life inhabits the water. Heard Island. Heard Island is a barren place deep in the South Indian Ocean. What makes the island special is that all of the birds on the island are native, and no invasive species are present, unlike other remote islands sprinkled throughout the Indian and Pacific Oceans. A variety of artifacts from the ships that went on the first expedition to Antarctica are present on Heard Island. Kola Super Deep Borehole. This refers to a project funded by the Soviet Union at the tail end of the 1960s. The space race was coming to a close, and the USA and USSR realized that another unexplored frontier was beneath their very feet. Both countries realized that there was an opportunity for scientific discovery underground. They both funded programs to begin burrowing into the earth. An American-backed mining company began work in Bavaria, and the USSR started the process of mining a relatively thin part of the Earth's crust in an area near the Norwegian border. The Germans finished their project first, burrowing 5.6 miles down. The drilling operations were stopped after Congress realized it was costing them roughly $40 million in 1970s money to mine a handful of yards. The Soviets continued to drill until the rock became too hot for their equipment to function. In 1995, the site was destroyed after the collapse of the USSR and the bankruptcy of the project. Kola's super deep borehole ended up going down 40,000 feet deep into the earth. Strange noises have been heard coming from the site in the intervening decades since the closing of the borehole. A popular urban legend surrounding the site was that the workers drilled into hell, and that is what caused the strange sounds to occur. Scientists have said that the shifting plates beneath the borehole caused this noise. Wanaka Tree. The Wanaka Tree became popular in social media. A tree in the southern part of Lake Wanaka in New Zealand was featured in a photography project in a 2014 issue of National Geographic. The tree got a lot of attention, and dozens of tourists took selfies with the tree and posted their photos with the Instagram hashtag #ThatWanakaTree. It was vandalized in 2020, but the tree branches are growing back steadily. Biringan City. This entry is a popular urban legend in the Philippines. Ancient, animalistic religions in this region have fascinating myths, and Biringan City is no exception. This place is similar to Atlantis or El Dorado. The city is said to be on the island of Samar. Different stories give different locations for the city. The city is populated by a race of supernatural creatures called Encantos. Encantos fit the traditional interpretation of elves or the Fae, with prominent pointed ears and slight builds. Other forms of these creatures include spirits and even horrific monsters. They are said to be powerful sorcerers who entrap or take out anyone who wanders into the city or the woods near their portals. It's said that the native belt trees serve as gateways from which Encantos go out to hunt. Natives of Samar advise that if an individual ever finds themselves in the city, they should refuse any food, drinks, or gifts given by the city dwellers. If you accept any of these things verbally, your soul will be trapped in the city for eternity. If you decline these gifts, you'll find yourself back in the real world, weeks or months after you went missing. Jaya Sri Mahabodhi. This is a sacred tree connected to the life of Buddha. Buddha, according to the stories, was sitting beneath this fig tree at the moment he achieved enlightenment. The tree received a venerated status within Buddha's lifetime. He passed away in 483 BC. In 266 BC, a Buddhist nun by the name of Mahathiri brought a branch of the tree to the king of Sri Lanka. The branch from the original sacred fig tree was planted at the royal garden and remains there today. Patomskiy Crater. This crater was discovered by a geologist in 1949. The site was originally thought to have come from a fragment of the meteorite that impacted Siberia in the Tunguska Event, but its peculiar shape was different from any other known meteorite strike. It was also suggested that the place was a dormant volcano, but no evidence was found to support that claim. A team of Siberian scientists counted the rings in the trees growing near the crater. By their estimate, the crater was around 250 years old. Radioactive elements were present in the area, and the trees around the crater had experienced heightened growth. Some sort of light radiation was emanating from Patomskiy Crater. No one has proven what exactly caused this crater deep within the Siberian wilderness. Plain of Jars. This entry could warrant an entire video on its own. Thousands of jars are scattered over a plain deep in the highlands of Laos. These jars range in height from 3 feet to 10 feet and are roughly 3,000 years old. The contents of the jars were looted long ago, leaving scant evidence as to what these were actually used for. The presence of ashes in some of the jars has led some archaeologists to believe that these were funeral urns used for cremation. An alternate theory suggests that they were used to store rice wine and other commodities. Local legends say that a giant created these urns and placed rice wine for his friends after they won a massive battle. Monkey Island, Liberia. In 2005, the New York Blood Center ended its program that researched infectious diseases. The group had been infecting chimps with a variety of deadly diseases in order to get a better understanding of how some blood-borne pathogens functioned. The center, faced with bankruptcy, decided to dump 66 lab chimps onto an island near the coast of Liberia. The chimps carried diseases that were far too dangerous to be let loose onto the mainland. The chimps were not able to swim well, so the water was an effective barrier. The community of chimps has continued to grow as a local regularly goes to the island to feed the abandoned creatures. White's Club. White's Gentlemen's Club is an exclusive location based out of London. It is the oldest club in England, founded in 1693 AD. Only graduates of the most exclusive universities in the UK have been admitted. Initial membership costs $112,000, and it takes as long as 10 years for applicants to be admitted. Famous members of the club include King Charles III, Prince William, and Ian Fleming, the author of the James Bond novels. The expensive membership ensures that absolute privacy is available for the club's members. Only a handful of photographers have managed to enter the club. Eternal Flame Falls. Eternal Flame Falls is located in Chestnut Ridge Park in upstate New York. A large plume of flame is perpetually burning behind the rock face of this formation. It's said that the fire was lit by Native American tribesmen hundreds of years before Europeans crossed the Atlantic. Scientists believed for a long time that the fire was generated by a lit pocket of methane beneath the falls. However, a team from the University of Indiana found that there was no evidence of a gas pocket beneath the site, leaving scientists perplexed as to how the flame continues to burn. Hidden oil rigs of Los Angeles. California experienced a significant oil boom throughout the 1920s and 1930s. California produced a quarter of the global oil output at its peak. Much of current-day Los Angeles' suburbs were once the sites of fields of oil derricks that were drilling the pockets on the city's former outskirts. Los Angeles experienced an increase in population at the conclusion of World War II. These sites were torn down to make way for suburban complexes. Some of the derricks survived and are all over LA. Many of them are disguised as faux chimneys or bell towers. Some, like the Tower of Hope at the Beverly Hills High School, were made into art installations. Many of these derricks are offshore and disguised as structures, like observation towers. Cocknoe Stone. The Cocknoe Stone is a 5,000-year-old rock panel in West Dunbartonshire, in Britain. The panels are made out of sandstone and covered by dozens of different signs and symbols connected to rites used in Druid ceremonies. The rock was reburied in 1964 due to multiple attempts to vandalize it. The stone was excavated by archaeologists in 2015 and scanned. The scan was used to create a 3D replica of the stone. The replica was then put on display near the dig site. Ark of the Covenant location. The Ark of the Covenant was an artifact that represented the presence of God to the ancient Israelites. The Ark was a symbol of God's power and presence, and was of great significance in their religion. The Ark was lost, and its location was said to be everywhere from Rome to Ethiopia. Slope Point. Slope Point is at the southernmost part of New Zealand. The trees were planted by sheep farmers seeking to make shelter for their flocks. The extreme winds coming off the sea mangled the trees and pushed them into these strange shapes. The Mississippians. The Mississippian culture was a prominent group of Native American tribes that dwelled in the river valleys of several southern and midwestern states. The culture is the youngest of these relatively ancient cultures. The first instances of Mississippian culture emerged in 700 AD and ended with the arrival of the European colonists. This culture's calling card was well-organized villages surrounded by fields of their usual crop, which was corn. They were autonomous city-states ruled by priest kings. The people constructed massive burial mounds, which were places of worship for the shaman class. Cleopatra's tomb location. Archaeologists struggled to narrow down the place of Cleopatra's burial. Archaeologists began excavating the Temple of Osiris in 2020, along with Taposiris Magna near Alexandria. It hasn't been confirmed that she was buried in either of these locations, and the team hasn't given updates as of the time of writing. Michelangelo's hidden drawing. This famous Renaissance painter was hiding in 1529. A rebellion against the Pope and the powerful Medici family was underway. Michelangelo left his patrons, the Medicis, and joined the rebellion against them. He designed the defenses of Florence as they prepared for a response from his former patrons. The invading forces crushed the rebellion, and Michelangelo was forced to go into hiding. He lived in a tiny, closed-off chamber underneath the Medici chapel. He drew self-portraits, images of Christ, and concept art that appeared in his later work on the Sistine Chapel in this room. The Pope pardoned Michelangelo, and he resumed working for the Medicis. Leningradskaya Station. The USSR built a research station deep within Antarctica in the 1970s. The site housed scientists year-round, and it acted as a lab for a variety of experiments. The base was built in a place that was exposed to constant high winds and intense storms. It was abandoned in the 1990s and remains in its original location, mostly intact. It is currently open to the public. Mu. Mu was a continent invented by the French writer Auguste Le Plongeon. He suggested that the land of Mu could be an alternate title for Atlantis. His theory was Atlantis was a lost continent instead of a lost city. Fairy circles of Namibia. These consist of bare patches of earth in the midst of grass and other vegetation. It was thought that these phenomena were the result of a species of termite that likes to feed off specific species of grass and weeds, or caused by fungi that attack these varieties of plants. Dog Bridge. This entry is connected to the Overton Bridge in Dumbarton, Scotland. Dozens of dogs have leaped off here, with the first recorded incident occurring in 1950. Scientists believe that this phenomena is caused by dogs going wild from the sense of small mammals that live and travel under the bridge. Locals believe that it's a gateway between our reality and a supernatural place. It's also said that a malevolent force lures the dogs off the bridge. Valley of Headless Men. Frank and Willie McLeod were brothers who had come to Alaska in 1904 to look for gold. They came from Alberta and headed towards the Nahanni Range. They packed light provisions and traversed hundreds of miles during the winter and then eventually reached their destination, Gold Creek. Their efforts during the trip were rewarded, and they returned home to Fort Laird with gold in hand. The brothers made a second expedition to the Nahanni Range in 1905. They never returned. Nothing was heard from Frank and Willie up until another one of their brothers, Charlie, led a search in the park in 1908. He discovered the skeletal remains of Frank and Willie at their base camp near the river within a vast valley. Their heads had been severed, and Frank laid outstretched, with his arm reaching for his gun. Blankets were strewn across Willie, suggesting that Frank had suddenly jumped out of bed. Since then, the valley has been called Dead Man's Valley, and the body of running water has become Headless Creek. The brothers weren't the only ones to go missing within the park. A prospector from the Yukon named Martin Jorgensen met a similar fate in 1917. He'd sent news home shortly before his passing. He'd said that he'd struck it rich in the area. His decapitated remains were found outside of his cabin, which had been burned to the ground. Newspapers of the time claimed that a tribe of native headhunters had survived encounters with the British and French and hidden deep within the valley, sometimes emerging to prey on the unwary. The valley extends for around 200 miles, and massive tracts of land go unmonitored by the park rangers and mounted police today. Closed cities in Russia. These are cities that can be found all over the former USSR and present-day Russian Federation. Closed cities are excluded from official maps and do not show up on official train and bus routes. These cities served the Russian military throughout the Cold War, allowing them to conduct clandestine operations while concealing the production of nuclear weapons, along with vital military components. Many of these cities were not even known until the collapse of the USSR. It's estimated that the Russians still possess 40 closed cities that are inhabited by a total of 1.5 million people. Surtsey Island in Iceland. Surtsey Island emerged from the ocean in 1963. It was created by a volcanic eruption. The island is closed to the public, as researchers are actively monitoring Surtsey to observe the colonization of the island by different forms of life. Blood Falls. Blood Falls is in Antarctica. The glacier appears to be covered in blood at first glance. The material coming out of this glacier is water rich with iron that is escaping the ice. This is caused by a lake full of microbes beneath the cliff face. The prehistoric microbes generate iron, giving the Blood Falls its unique look. Longyearbyen. This is the northernmost town in the world, located in Svalbard. The town boasts 1,000 residents. Polar bears inhabit the area close to the settlement, and the town's website advises residents and visitors to carry firearms when leaving the boundaries of the town. Longyearbyen is also home to a snowmobile biker gang called the Sons of Svalbard. Egersvålig Salt Hill. This place is in Hungary. It's a rare example of a salt spring. Mineral-rich water flows from the top of the salt hill and collects in deep pools at the bottom. The water has beneficial effects, with many reporting relief from back pain, eczema, and other medical conditions. Çatalhöyük Civilization. This refers to the ancient city of Çatalhöyük. This city was discovered by archaeologists working near Konya in Turkey. The city was founded around 7000 BC and is one of the oldest known cities. The city had 8,000 residents during its heyday. The design philosophy of it marks the transformation of a nomadic culture into a city-dwelling group. There's some interesting architectural designs that show what the culture focused on. Deceased relatives were buried underneath their predecessors' living rooms, and the city had a cult of ancestor worship. Skulls were placed in the structures of buildings and were plastered over to make a cast of the person's face. The bones of animals were also placed in the building walls. The most commonly seen remains were from bulls, with bull skulls decorating living rooms and communal spaces. Miracle Staircase of the Loreto Chapel. A group of nuns living in the Loreto Chapel in Santa Fe, New Mexico, in the 1870s were faced with a conundrum. They wanted to use the choir loft in the church without having to take the ladder that provided access to it. The church's sanctuary was too small to support a traditional staircase. The nuns prayed to the patron saint of their church, Saint Joseph. A few days later, a carpenter arrived and offered to help create stairs for the loft. They accepted. He asked for some space and soon set to work. The final product was a winding staircase with an unusual construction. There was no central beam for the stairs. They were secured to the loft and the floor with heavy wooden pegs. The nuns were content with the design and held a banquet in the man's honor. The workman disappeared at this time, and no one in town could find him. The chapel's open to the public and has a display that tells the story of the staircase. Gedi Ruins. The Gedi Ruins are in a deep forest in Kenya, close to the Indian Ocean. Gedi was once a great city and was in its prime in the mid-13th century AD. Had beautiful orderly streets, running water, and indoor plumbing. Archaeologists still remain perplexed as to what caused the city's downfall and abandonment in the early 1500s. World's Loneliest Tree. The world's loneliest tree is on Campbell Island, near New Zealand. The tree is a Sitka spruce. It's 170 miles away from the closest tree and 1,170 miles away from another member of its species. It's said that one of the past governors of the island planted the tree at the turn of the 20th century. Doveland, Wisconsin. Doveland is a collective myth. The story of this town began when a 4chan user reposted an old discussion thread, which goes as follows. Anyone here ever heard about Doveland, Wisconsin? Okay, so this is just like Gulf rumors, where there's basically no information available online. Even less than Gulf rumors, in fact. Supposedly there was a small town in Wisconsin called Doveland that just up and disappeared sometime in the late 1980s, early 1990s. One day the town was there. The next, it wasn't. Every man, woman, and child vanished into thin air. Nobody today remembers Dovland. There's allegedly tourist memorabilia from the town that still exists. T-shirts, mugs, postcards, etc., but the town is gone. It was also removed from maps and razed by the powers that be, either to cover up what happened or out of fear that it might happen again. What's really weird is that most locals don't remember Devland either, which is strange because in rural Wisconsin communities are closely knit, just like every other sparsely populated area of the country. Most likely, explanation is it never existed, but let's carry on with just a bit more. Here are the theories postulated as to where it went. 1. The town just never existed. 2. The locals up and left due to untenable circumstances like sickness or lack of economy. 3. A government project or experiment gone wrong killed everyone, then they razed it to the ground to cover it up. 4. The town fell into another dimension, or we shifted into a reality where the town had never existed, like the Mandela effect. Point Nemo. Point Nemo is called the point of inaccessibility, as it is the farthest point away from a landmass on Earth. It's in the South Pacific. Pole of inaccessibility. These are places throughout the world defined as being the point farthest away from the ocean within a continent. In Asia, it's a point in northwest China, near the Kazakhstan border, 1,500 miles away from the ocean. The North American pole is a marker in a gully near the town of Allen, South Dakota, around 1,000 miles from the ocean. The South American point is in Arnópolis, Brazil, 970 miles from the sea. The African point is in Obo, in the Central African Republic. It is 1,100 miles away. Australia's point is only 570 miles, and then Antarctica's is only 500 miles away from the sea. Yanar Bulag Fire Spring. This natural phenomenon is in Astara in Azerbaijan. The site is a small building containing a single standing metal pipe. What sets this place apart is that the spring produces both fire and water. This area has traditionally followed Zoroastrianism, a religion founded around 2,500 years ago. Fire and water were purifying elements in their belief system. Oym Yukon. Oym Yukon is in Siberia and is the coldest human settlement on Earth. Average temperatures are a balmy -55 degrees Fahrenheit in the winter, and the humidity is around 80% on average. Freezing rain and heavy snow continue to pour down on the town for most of the year. Cactus Dome. The Cactus Dome is a radioactive pit covered up by a 100,000 square foot wide concrete dome. The U.S. used the Marshall Islands and other atolls as testing grounds for nuclear weapons throughout the Cold War. America was left with 11,000 cubic yards of radioactive dirt from these testing grounds. They decided to dispose of it on Runit Island. Their disposal zone had the code name Cactus. As a result, the area earned the name Cactus Dome. You can visit the site, but it's highly discouraged due to the level of radiation present on the dome's surface. Thule and Hyperborea. These two places are sometimes said to be the same location. The Greeks and the Romans thought that the world was bordered by a gigantic ocean. Thule and Hyperborea were on this Great Sea in the west. It was said that these places were agriculturally rich and close to the Arctic. Ischigualasto Formation. This is a park in Argentina. The Ischigualasto Formation is a fossil-rich area with a variety of preserved skeletons from the late Triassic period. Many discoveries involving tetrapods and dinosaurs have come from this area, as it contains a complete fossil record of the Triassic. One interesting find was the skeletons of dozens of creatures called cynodontia. They were dinosaur-mammal hybrids, being warm-blooded, possessing dog-like teeth, and a coat of hair, while still laying eggs. Wall of Tears. The Wall of Tears can be found on the island of Isabella in the Galapagos Islands. This massive rock wall was built by prisoners shipped from mainland Ecuador. The wall was a form of punishment, as the imprisoned were forced to spend their time finding volcanic rock to build what would become their prison's outer wall. Many succumbed to sickness, malnutrition, and exposure to the elements before the wall was completed. The place was abandoned, and nowadays the site serves as a memorial to the fate of the prisoners. Kukaniloko Birthstones. This site is on the island of Oahu in the Hawaiian island chain. Chieftains were born at this exact spot for many centuries. It's thought that the stones served a dual purpose, also fulfilling an astronomical purpose like Stonehenge. Gross Fredenwald Cemetery. The story of this cemetery begins in 1962. Construction was beginning at a vineyard at Fredenwald, and the workers uncovered a mass grave. People grew understandably worried, but the bodies were carbon dated and found to be over 8,000 years old. It became one of the oldest burial grounds found in Europe. Sycamore Knoll. This anomaly appeared on Google Maps years ago. This location was 2,000 feet underwater off of Point Doom near Malibu. Speculation arose, and some thought it was a man-made structure. Experts said that the shape is a segment of the continental shelf that was created by constant earthquakes in the region. Fusang. Fusang is a part of the theory that the Chinese beat the Vikings to the New World. It was mentioned throughout the Enlightenment period by a variety of authors. They said that the Chinese had a mythical place called Fusang in their lore that matched descriptions of North America. Bridge of No Return in the Koreas. This lies on the border between North Korea and South Korea. The bridge was used for prisoner exchanges between 1953 and 1976. The bridge earned its name from the ultimatum given to all prisoners passing between the two countries. They could either stay in captivity or return home, but once they crossed the bridge, they couldn't ever come back. The Hand in the Desert, Chile. This is in the Atacama Desert. It is 36 feet tall and was created by the sculptor Mario Irarrázaval in 1992. The artist's statement says that the hand is reaching out from the sand, which represents the injustice still present in modern day. There's a right hand that is 1,200 miles away in Uruguay. Lake Natron. This lake has strikingly red water. It gains this hue from sodium carbonate and other minerals that enter the lake from the hills surrounding Natron. The water has very high alkaline content. The lake's water is caustic enough to burn exposed skin. A variety of animals have adapted to this environment, and Lake Natron supports an entire ecosystem. There's some amazing photos of creatures preserved by the lake out there. Pokani Forest. This forest is deep within Latvia. The forest has many piles of rocks throughout it. It's thought that these stacks of stones are the end result of a group of locals' failed attempt to construct a castle in the Middle Ages. Many New Age followers congregate here, as they hold that the site is a doorway between the physical and spiritual realms. Norumbega. This was a mythical city of riches, said to be where modern-day Bangor, Maine lies. sailors told stories of landing at this place. One sailor named David Ingram gave the following account of what he observed. "I saw kings decorated with rubies that were 6 inches long. They were borne on chairs of silver and crystal, adorned with precious stones. I saw pearls as common as pebbles, and the natives were laden down by their ornaments." Lost Solomon Islands. This group is located in Oceania, near Papua New Guinea. These islands have a population of over 680,000 people. The islands are subject to rising sea levels, with 5 islands disappearing beneath the sea in the past few decades. 6 have shrunk in size. Sea Peoples' origin. The Sea Peoples were the cause of the Bronze Age collapse in the 12th century BC. Many of the eastern Mediterranean civilizations were destroyed, and multiple great cities were burned by the raiders. The identity and place of origin of these raiders has been debated for a long time by a variety of famous historians, although we're going to focus more on their origins in this entry. Looking for information about their origins brought up several different theories. Past historians believe that they came from the Aegean Sea between Greece and Turkey, or from southern Europe. Others hold that they emerged from the western Mediterranean. Zealandia. Zealandia is referred to as Earth's lost continent. It broke off of the supercontinent Gondwana around 85 million years ago. It was almost twice as large as the subcontinent of India. Zealandia experienced massive elevation change as the seas surrounding it rose up, and sank by 23 million BC. 6% of the continent remains, forming the islands of New Zealand and New Caledonia. Scientists discovered the continent relatively recently, in 2017. There's still a lot of discoveries to make, as Zealandia is gigantic and over 6,500 feet beneath the sea. Via Epiquin. This place was once a popular vacation spot for the wealthy in Argentina. Via Epiquin was around 370 miles from Buenos Aires, and many came from major cities to enjoy the restorative effects of the local salt lake. Disaster struck the vacation town in 1985. The officials in charge of the town poured most of their budget into tourist accommodations, neglecting upkeep of the dam that separated Via Epiquin from its lake. In 1985, after a series of intense storms, the water overflowed the dam and it gave way. There was little loss of life as people were notified and evacuated, as it was a couple of weeks between when the storm hit and the dam gave way. The town was ruined and left to wither. It took 25 years for the water to recede, and the area now looks like a post-apocalyptic ghost town. The town currently possesses only a single resident. Dashka Stone. Archaeologists discovered this artifact in the Ural Mountains of eastern Russia in 1999. The artifact is called the Map of the Creator. The map consists of a 1 to 1.1 kilometer scale bird's eye view of a section of the Urals known as the Voskara. The stone depicts a series of water channels, dams, and other structures. Hieroglyphs that resemble Proto-Chinese are on the map as well. The stone carving was made around 3,000 years ago. The maps closely resemble the mappings of modern satellites, despite the tectonic shifts that have occurred in the last 3,000 years. Glacier Republic. This was founded in 2014 by the organization Greenpeace. It was a region of 8,000 square miles of ice in Chile, Greenpeace established the Republic to draw attention to corporations disrupting the glacier sheets to find precious materials. The nation had a population of 165,000 at its height, a capital, 40 international embassies, and a flag that looked a lot like the NordVPN logo. Gulf of Cambot archaeology discovery. This refers to submerged ruins that were discovered in 2000. The site was found by the Indian National Institute of Ocean Studies during a pollution study that was conducted by radar. Structures were seen on the sonar readings, and then crews were dispatched to investigate. Multiple hand tools and implements, along with skeletal remains, were dredged. Carbon dating of the artifacts revealed that they predated the Indus Valley Civilization, which dates from 7000 BC. A city was uncovered 120 feet below the research craft, and research and testing revealed it to be over 9,500 years old, which would put that at around 7,500 years. The city was roughly the size of Manhattan, so around 22.8 miles, and was likely founded near the end of the Ice Age. The city was most likely taken out by rapidly rising tides. It's thought that this civilization was the mother culture of the Harappans, a civilization that lived in the Indus Valley area. UTA Flight 772 Memorial. UTA Flight 772 took off from Brazzaville in the Republic of the Congo in 1989 and was en route to Paris. The plane exploded over the Saharan Desert, taking out the 156 passengers and 14 crew members on board. The families of the victims created this memorial deep in the Saharan Desert. The memorial is a life-size silhouette of the craft, pointing north. It's surrounded by 170 broken mirrors, representing the lost people who were on the plane. Inaccessible Island. Inaccessible Island is an extinct volcano. It earns its name from the fact that it's immensely difficult to get to it successfully. The island has soaring cliffs that drop off into the sea on every side. A small beach is accessible, but only for smaller craft. Landings can be made at only specific times of the year, due to the tides and other conditions. Dighton Rock. The Dighton Rock weighs 40 tons and is covered in hieroglyphs. The rock was left where it was found in the middle of the Taunton River for many years. The rock was removed in 1963 and then placed in a local museum. Today, the hieroglyphs remain a mystery. No people group has been held responsible for the decorations on its surface. Kvenland. Kvenland was a great Viking kingdom that included massive sections of Scandinavia. This area was controlled by an alliance of Finnish-speaking tribes. Kvenland existed sometime in the early hundreds AD. Zerzura. Zerzura is a lost city said to be located somewhere in the Libyan desert. Arabic myths from the medieval period mention this city as the last sign of a forgotten civilization that existed in the desert when it was once a lush area. Rediscovering Zerzura remained a goal for many explorers. Nothing has been found by the many expeditions that entered the Libyan desert. Archaeologists agree that an ancient civilization called this place home in the distant past. The Flowers of Coffee Clubben. This place is extremely far north, located off the northern coast of Greenland. Summer here only lasts 30 days a year. Despite this, some tenacious flowers inhabit the island. The two varieties that call this place home are the northernmost flowers on Earth. They are called the purple saxifrage and the Arctic poppy. Sekunti Trifilian settlements. This exotic-sounding civilization dwelled in Eastern Europe around 3700 BC. These people buried their cities every 60 to 80 years and built a new city over the old. They left no written language. A variety of intricate ceramic artifacts have been found in the ruins of these places. The quality of craftsmanship suggests that they were some of the largest and most advanced cities in the Neolithic world. They seem to have focused more on power through trade rather than through warfare. Nabta Playa. This would make a great band name. This site in the Nubian desert dates back to 6100 BC. It's the world's oldest known astronomical site and was a gathering place for local tribes. Cattle bones have been found around the site, meaning that cattle were probably sacrificed to various gods here. Kat Shabib Wall. This stretches for 93 miles within the country of Jordan. It's from before the Roman occupation of the region and was most likely used to provide shelter from the ferocious sandstorms that came through the area. 7 Giants in Russia. These stone pillars range between 60 at the smallest and 129 at the tallest feet tall, and are arranged in a circle. It's believed that they are the remains of an eroded rock formation. Legends from the area say that they were once 6 giants who were on their way to attack a tribe. A shaman named Yalinger followed their tracks, caught up with them, and then turned them into stone after they made camp. He too was made into stone while casting this spell. Shifting sand dunes. The Olduvai Gorge is a group of sand dunes made out of magnetic volcanic ash. If you pull a handful of sand out of these dunes and let it go will go right back to the dune. Small clumps of sand will drift and attach to a small rock with a magnetic pole or some other similar feature. More magnetized sand will collect over time, and an entire sand dune can appear at the site of where the first little bit of sand drifted to. The largest dunes move at a rate of about 50 feet a year. Rock paintings in the Colombian Amazon. This large collection of rock paintings is in Serrania de la Lindosa. What is intriguing about the paintings is that they depict a variety of creatures that lived around the Ice Age. These include drawings of megafauna, like the giant sloth, camelids, and giant armadillos. Singing sand dunes of Liwa. This auditory phenomenon occurs in the Empty Quarter, the south of the United Arab Emirates. The sound is described as being like a didgeridoo or a low-flying plane. Popular legends claim that the variety of sounds that issue from the dunes come from evil spirits. Scientists say that this happens from the oscillation of air pockets beneath the grains of sand. Lost Island of Lyonesse. The story of the Lost Island of Lyonesse describes a peninsula off the southernmost tip of England. This place had a massive castle surrounded by a thriving city. The people of the peninsula committed a great sin, one so great that the island was sunk into the sea by God over the course of a single night. One good man escaped, and he went on to found House Trevelyan. Kingdom of Aksum. This was a superpower of the ancient world. It existed in Ethiopia from the 1st century BC to the 8th century AD. It became a Christian nation, but came under attack from raiders and was weakened by the drying up of the places it had dedicated to agriculture. Dabus, giraffes. This series of intricate rock paintings is in Dabus, Niger. They depict giraffes standing next to human figures. It's thought that these represented the ceremonial worship of the giraffes by dedicated cults around 8,000 years ago. Baltia Island. This place was mentioned by Greco-Roman historians. It was far to the north of their countries and was said to be the source for amber. Mogachang. This place is called the Devil's Town. It's in the Chinese province of Xinjiang. It's a beautifully rugged area that features rock formations that have been shaped by wind erosion over time. The place looks like the vague outline of a town from a distance, and is known to have strange auditory phenomena. Screams and roars are just a few of the noises that are caused by wind passing in between the spires of the quote-unquote town. City 40. Ozersk, known by its designation City 40 during the Cold War, was constructed throughout the late 1940s. The USSR built it, along with a massive nuclear power plant called Mayak. The city held scientists and workers dedicated to work on the plant and the Soviet Union's nuclear weapons program. The people who came to dwell here were told that they were the nuclear shield and saviors of the world by the authorities. The place was beautiful, and the residents could enjoy comfortable private housing, financial security, and other benefits in exchange for remaining silent about their work. Unbeknownst to the townspeople, radiation exposure from the plant was slowly increasing, and many workers fell sick and passed away. Their bodies were carefully disposed of. The city is still inhabited, and people continue to live in Ozersk, despite the massive levels of radiation present. Alright, that's it for tonight. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed the video, consider subscribing or supporting me through the links in the description. I'll see you in the next video. Take care, and good night.